were the officers at the time they decided to kill him in present danger? Because that's the statute. You have to be in imminent danger. Imminent means imminent. It means right now, present. It doesn't mean vengeful. It doesn't mean somebody may have done something earlier and now you're going to get them back. It means right now that you're going to die, or somebody else is going to die right now, imminent, or be severely injured. That was the question. Now you see the prosecutor acting as a defense attorney, okay? And saying things on record in order to solidify the innocence of these officers. Grand jury proceedings also, top secret. We do not know what was presented or not, because we do not get access to the grand jury file. All right, Sharon, thoughts on this?
It's like Mike Brown. Remember that case?
Yeah.
Out of Missouri. We know after the fact, we learned that he was just portrayed as a drug addict, high on marijuana. So, the officer just had to kill him. It seems like it's always justified. And I've seen too many analysts, Dr. Ritchie, go on camera in the last 24 to 48 hours, and they're contorting themselves. They're so agile in explaining why it just had to be this way. But when you shoot off that many rounds, you're actually endangering people. You're not helping to save anybody.
Yeah, and you got to think about that, Sharon, because as soon as I heard that many gunshots, I said, my goodness, that could kill anybody, right? Sure. Anybody who's standing around, a ricochet bullet, right? Somebody who's just in the vicinity. It is a dangerous scenario. And let's not get it twisted. We've reported right here on Indisputable, a white female inside of a hospital shoots her husband, shoots the roof of the hospital. And what does the cop say? Hey, guys, don't fire. We have all the time in the world. And they negotiated her out of that room as she was taken into custody after shooting her husband, shooting up the hospital, and a cop yelling to the other cops, do not fire. Why? Because he valued the life of that white woman that he saw who just shot her own husband. That's why it ended different for her. All right. Sharon, always a pleasure having you on the program. Tell people how they can follow you and check out your great work.
At Sharon Reed Live, always. Appreciate you always. Boy, these stories, they're tough. We need you now more than ever, Doc.
Well, we need you, and we are glad to have you. All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Hello and welcome to Unbossed. I'm your host, Nina Turner. I am so glad you're all here with me today. If you're a regular viewer, you might be saying, what is that background? Is it new? Is it different? I am actually on the road, but I am here and so glad that you are too. And on today's show, turns out that Republican states could be hit the hardest by Leader McCarthy's proposed spending cuts. Then Senator Susan Collins sinks hopes of replacing Senator Dianne Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee. We're going deep into that. And later in the show, photos surface showing kids as young as 6 years old, if you can believe that. Yes, I said 6 years old, handling guns at the NRA's annual meeting. Sounds like grooming to me. We're going deep. Now, don't forget to subscribe and to share this link if you are a regular viewer. You know we love you, boo. Thank you so much for being here today. But don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Go ahead, phone a friend, text a friend, send a message in a bottle. And today we are joined by Bennie Carollo, and she is a contributor for The Breakdown. Bennie, so good to have you in the house.
It's good to be back.
Oh, so glad. But we got a lot to cover today, so we're gonna get right to it. Kevin McCarthy is doing what he does best, feeding the corporate machine. Watch this.
A debt ceiling is like giving your child a credit card, and they charge the limit all the way up. Would you just raise the limit? No, you would sit down.
Well, if it meant playing with America's standing and full faith and credit of U.S. government debt, I feel like you can deal with the spending in other ways, which is totally legitimate.
So if you just raise the debt ceiling, do you think $31 trillion of debt? The CBO has come out in the next 10 years. Do you know we'll pay 10.5?
You did it 3 times in the Trump administration.
As we did economic changes. We never raised the debt ceiling by itself.
But the tax cuts, that was like $2 trillion deficit.
It was really nice, sisters and brothers, family and friends, to see that reporter go back at Kevin McCarthy on his BS. But that was him, Leader McCarthy, speaking to CNBC on Monday, trying to justify the proposed spending cuts. Now, McCarthy is spewing this nonsense as he battles with President Biden's administration and Democrats over the debt ceiling. But this is what the Republicans do on a regular basis. They only want to battle about the debt ceiling when it comes to what Democrats are doing, but they don't battle with the debt ceiling when it comes to Republicans. So Speaker Kevin McCarthy said House Republicans will vote in the coming weeks on legislation to raise the debt ceiling, but only 1 year and tied to spending cuts. Surprise, surprise, surprise. No surprise there. And Biden and McCarthy met 75 days ago on February 1st, but the two leaders have not met or spoken about the debt ceiling since, beyond trading claims to reporters. The president has not budgeted on his refusal to negotiate on his refusal to negotiate over the debt limit, and has dismissed GOP efforts to combine a debt ceiling vote to a deal on the budget. So what are these cuts? Inquiring minds want to know. So glad you asked. Let's take a look. Republicans also want to attach policy priorities, including imposing work requirements to recipients of government aid, and would result in cuts to benefit programs in the federal safety net for poorer Americans. This reporting is coming from the Associated Press. But here was McCarthy spewing about those work requirements while visiting Wall Street. Watch.
Our proposal will also restore work requirements that ensure able-bodied adults without dependents earn a paycheck and learn new skills. That will grow our economy and help the supply chain. Right now, there are more job openings than people who are looking for jobs. You know why? It's in part because the Biden administration weakened work requirements. Incentives matter. And the incentives today are out of whack. It's time to get Americans back to work.
My. Speaker McCarthy making this like really, really, where are the requirements for the corporations and the CEOs that are at the government trough over and over again? He had nothing to say about those people. So where were the work requirements when we bailed out the bank? Inquiring mind, or the banks, we should say, inquiring minds want to know, or the tax cuts that we gave to the ultra wealthy. Were there any work requirements for them? Were there any commitments that those folks had to make to the American people? No, they were nowhere to be found. And then Rep. Don Beyer tweeted the following: Kevin McCarthy passed a $1.9 trillion tax cut for the rich that wasn't paid for. A quarter of our national debt was accrued under Trump, and McCarthy had a key role. He helped Trump raise the debt limit 3 times with no demands. He can raise the debt limit anytime he should. Go ahead on, Representative Bayers. Lay it on them. Let them know what the truth is, right? So I'm really, again, Benny, I was really glad to see that CNBC reporter pushed back on Speaker McCarthy, and really glad to see what Rep. Beyer had to say. Just lay it out. They are one-track minded, and they only want to hurt the poor and the working poor in this country. Those are the only groups of people they want to put requirements on. But the corporations can do whatever they want to do on the backs of the taxpayers, the American people.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's a reason why giant companies love work requirements for programs like this, because it allows them to operate in a space where they have a hyper exploitable group of people that are never allowed to make over a certain amount of money, otherwise they would lose those benefits. So these are people who are not gonna ask for higher wages, but they are desperately afraid of losing their job out of fear of losing those benefits. And it really just puts workers in an impossible situation where quite literally asking for a raise could threaten different types of benefits that they have. And then on top of that, there's just the reality that these are the same people that complain when unemployment is too low, because golly gee, if it's difficult to find workers, then they might have to increase wages. And so they actually sit around and complain about wages being too low. And then if you look at the people that are actually hit by this, you start to realize that like across the country, a lot of people living in red states are the people that hit the worst by this. And so like fundamentally, you'd think that it'd be undermining their own voting base, but ultimately it is all about like exploiting a already hyper exploited group of people.
Yeah, that is so true. And they really don't care about hurting their own voters. They really don't care, Benny, because we both know, and the people viewing with us know too, there are poor people, they're working poor people, they're barely middle class people all over the country. Those people don't just live in so-called blue states, they live all over the United States of America. And these Republicans especially, and we know Democrats do the same thing, because when you have neoliberals and these neo-fascists, they answer to the same masters. In this case, it is very clear that the Republicans absolutely do not care about working class people in this country, and they demonize poor people. And that is my problem here, painting poor people as somehow undeserving. But meanwhile, corporate welfare, these wealthy people are deserving. It makes no sense to me. And trying to turn Americans against each other is wrong. Is what they do really well. And we do know that McCarthy's cuts would hurt GOP states, because it is obvious that poor and working class people live everywhere. McCarthy is so ready to cut vital programs for low income Americans while boosting the pockets of the rich. Make no mistake about this, America. This is what is happening. That he's willing to sacrifice his own voters, as Bennie and I were talking about, in the process. So this is according to an analysis by Roy Tears. Analysis of federal spending data indicates that his proposed domestic spending caps could be felt most acutely in the states that back Republican President Donald J. Trump in the 2020 presidential election. Those 25 states received roughly $172 billion in the last fiscal year for highway construction, housing, public health, and other purposes, amounting to about $1,196 per person. The 25 states plus the District of Columbia that backed Democrat Joe Biden receive $205 billion, or a little over $1,000 per person. And thank Rutgers for this reporting. And those pesky work requirements that he keeps bringing up, well, McCarthy also proposed stiffening, if you can believe that, work requirements for benefits like SNAP, which provide grocery money for low-income people. That likewise could hit Republican-leaning states harder. By 3.1% of the population in those states could lose benefits, compared to 2.8% of residents in Biden states. And you know what, Bennie, as we close out this segment, I don't even like talking about this kind of stuff based on who's in a red state and who's in a blue state. This is about people who are suffering in this country and they need some relief. And it always boggles my mind. I mean, to the point of WTF for real. Why is it that when it comes to giving relief or a hand up to poor and working class people in this country, they gotta prove themselves worthy? You know what I mean? Because this is whose life is worthy. But then these ultra wealthy people and corporations don't have to prove that they're worthy, because by default, because they're moneyed, they're worthy. Like, there is something wrong with the American psyche when it comes to that. Benny, your thoughts on this?
No, 100%. Our entire economy is fundamentally dehumanizing. I mean, seriously, how many times have you heard the phrase earn a living? What do you mean earn a living? If you're a human being, you are deserving of basic necessities like housing, healthcare, food. Like, call me a radical communist or whatever, but like, I think food stamps should be a universal program. I think everybody should have a guaranteed minimum required to like put food on your table. And yeah, the whole red state, blue state thing is really, really frustrating, because you have a lot of like liberals who are go around and blame voters and say like, oh, what about the voters of like Tennessee or whatever? Look at this is what they're voting for. Except for it's not what they're voting for, because something around 8% of the entire voting age population of, I think, Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi are literally denied the right to vote due to prior felony voting laws, right? And so there's a huge segment of the population that are entirely disenfranchised. And that is just speaks to the extreme degree with which we are dehumanizing people at a fundamental level.
Oh, totally agreed on that, Benny. Oh my God, we have to do better. And to me, at some point, and I say this over and over again, to people who watch us regularly, we have to stop participating in our own, being complicit, really in our own demise here. And your point about how some neoliberals would do, they did that with East Palestine too, as you know. You had people like Joy Behar, and other, like some elected. She's not elected, she's on The View, but just really saying that the people of East Palestine don't deserve any relief from the federal government because they voted overwhelmingly for Trump. And I push back on that, and I'll continue to push back on that, because there's a certain level of humanity that we must exhibit that's not based on who's on the so-called red team and who's on the blue team. I'm on the team of the people. And when progressives like us, or at least in my estimation, when we fight for universal programs, we're fighting for those programs. If you are a true progressive, you are fighting for those programs for all people, whether they believe in them or not. They don't have to prove that they're worthy of clean air, clean water, clean food, or that they're worthy of healthcare, or that they gotta vote our way to get it, Because if we do think like that, then that makes us no better than the rest of these people. This kind of stuff burns my behind, and it burns my behind greatly. And we're gonna keep talking about this. Republicans, y'all need to step in and get Leader McCarthy. Y'all got poor people and working class people in your states, and those people don't have to prove that they worthy. Are they worthy by the virtue that they are alive? And then you're gonna punish children too, because as you punish adults, and I'm talking about families that have children, I understand every family doesn't have children, but I want y'all to think about that. You punishing adults, you hurting their damn kids too. Lord have mercy on my soul. All right, we going to Senator Susan Collins. She's pulling a Susan Collins. On Monday, the senator said she will not support an effort to replace Senator Dianne Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee. This now, of course, will sink Democratic hopes of breaking a tie on the panel that has helped Republicans block President Biden's federal judge nominees. I mean, these Republicans are in absolute heaven right now. Collins was the latest Republican senator to express opposition to temporarily replacing Feinstein, a move Democrats were expected to attempt this week via the unanimous consent process, which was always a long shot given that any single senator could sink the efforts. Thank you, Common Dreams, per usual. It now appears highly unlikely that Democrats will be able to get the necessary 60 yes votes for the replacement. A further example of how dysfunctional that Senate is. Who Collins joins in opposition? So glad you asked about the company she keeps. That's Senator Tom Cotton, Senator Thomas Tillis, Senator Marsha Blackburn, and so many others. And these are supposed to be the more moderate, cooperative Republicans. And things have been deadlocked for a long time. There are currently 58 vacancies. Did y'all know that? 58 vacancies on US district courts and 6 on circuit courts, according to Demand Justice Chief Counsel Christopher Kang. The American Constitutional Society, or Constitution Society, noted earlier this month that the Senate has made limited progress on judicial nominations in recent weeks, with only 3 confirmations since March 16th. Now, senior writer for the slate, Mark Joseph Stern, states it perfectly in this tweet. Feinstein's refusal to retire is currently wrecking Biden's entire judicial agenda. It's erasing the advantage that Senate Democrats gained in 2022. It's grinding confirmations to a halt. It's giving GOP senators even more leverage over noms. The damage here is just astounding. I agree with Mark. He goes on, by refusing to retire, Feinstein is making it impossible for Senate Democrats to push through the kind of diverse and progressive nominees whom Biden championed in his first 2 years. His track record on nominations is suddenly falling badly behind. This is an absolute disaster. He's framing it just the way it needs to be framed. And so glad to see people like Representative O'Connor come out and make a comment on this and not be afraid to say it, even though he's being labeled as a sexist by Representative Pelosi, which makes no sense to me. No, he's not sexist by saying, hey, we got to do something about this. And let's just go ahead and fix this thing. And who's losing? The American people are losing. So stop being selfish and let's fix this thing. So shout out to him. I'm glad that he did it. Now, you may remember that just last week, Senator Feinstein herself put out this notice. And we're going to put this notice up just to refresh your memory. When I was first diagnosed with shingles, I expected to return by the end of March work period. Unfortunately, my return to Washington has been delayed due to continued complications related to my diagnosis, and people can understand that. I intend to return as soon as possible once my medical team advises that it's safe for me to travel. In the meantime, I remain committed to the job and will continue to work from home in San Francisco. I understand that my absence could delay the important work of the Judiciary Committee. So I've asked Leader Schumer to ask the Senate to allow another Democratic senator to temporarily serve until I'm able to return or resume my committee work. Now that's what she said. And that's a beautiful thing that she said that. And then you got these Republicans messing around with what she said. Now, but the senator is 89. And she's singled that she has no intention of giving up her Senate seat entirely. Certainly her right to do. Don't want to take away that right to do. But the question becomes, what is in the best interest of not only the people she serves in the great state of California, but to the entire United States of America? At a certain point, you gotta say, whether you're 89 or 29, is what you're doing in the best interest of the people? That's the question. So Bennie, your thoughts, and plus the senator says she's not even running again for re-election on top of it. So why not? I mean, I wouldn't consider it making a sacrifice. She's had a long, vibrant career, Bennie, in the United States Senate. We're not talking about somebody that's only served one term. And then she's at a certain stage in her life. And this is not ageist to say, like, she's in a certain stage in her life and she's not running again. So why wouldn't she say, you know what? I'm just not feeling well right now. I didn't expect to leave this kind of way. I'm not running again. That's the way I want to leave. But as it happens, things are not going the way that I planned. And so since I'm not running again, I'm gonna make this sacrifice. Now, maybe maybe I'm being unreasonable. Bennie, your thoughts?
No, I think it's perfectly reasonable, especially like, look, as a trans woman, I feel this very acutely because right now what is happening with the federal judiciary is there are a ton of laws that Republicans are trying to push across the country to, in many ways, like ban trans people from public, take away trans people's health care, right? Like stripping away basic rights for queer people. And that is going to be going through the federal court system. That is all going to be going through the federal court system. It currently is. And we need a fully staffed federal judiciary to actually shoot down all of these absolutely unhinged bills that Republicans are trying to push, stripping away people's rights. And so fundamentally, unless you are doing everything within your power to make sure that Joe Biden can put as many judges that support trans people as possible in the federal judiciary, then fundamentally, what are we even doing here? You can't say that you support trans people. You can't say you support trans people and do anything to delay this. And like, look, if you're 89, like, I don't know, make your own life decisions. But if I was that old, I would like, by that age, hopefully I'm retired and I can just spend my time with like my family and my friends and my loved ones. And I probably wouldn't be trying to do work, even if there was important work to be done. There's other people that can handle that.
Or, just in an advisory role, people don't have to, I hope I'm blessed enough to live to see 89. So I'm not one to just say, because I think we do that to our elders too much. We just try to put them out to pasture. That's not what we're saying here. She's had a very long and vibrant career. She's not running again. Things are happening in her life as it could happen to anybody else. It's just to ask your question. And that's why I said, if you're 29 or 89, there comes a time where you got to make a decision. Because, Bennie, we know sickness can hit anybody. Babies die, unfortunately. Young people die, babies die. People die. It's a matter of life. And I'm not saying that the senator is about to die. I'm using that as an example just to say that it is vitally important for her, in my opinion, to put the Senate and the country first. And the extra dynamic is that she's already decided not to run again. So she could just gift this and say, hey, I want to do what's in the best interest. I think minimally, the fact that she said, look, temporarily put somebody there is a good start, and the Republicans are not doing it. But come on, Senator Feinstein, come on, baby. Come on, I think this is a little selfish to me, but that's me. That's how I feel about it. For our viewers, we would love, Bennie and I would love your comments on this or anything else you want to talk about, all right? We're gonna give you an opportunity to put your comments in. We're gonna collect those. We'll be back after this.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Welcome back to the show. Oh, my favorite part is right here, right now, and that is viewer comments. So we're gonna start with our TYT member, Speed Racer. Hey, Speed Racer, baby. The People's Senator is back. Oh, thank you, Speed Racer. That means a lot to me, and I'm so happy to be back. I had some travel hiccups, but hey, I am here. And blessed nevertheless. So thank you, Speed Racer. That means a lot to me. And on Twitch, Overseer Dixon. Hey, Overseer Dixon in the house. Bennie, so glad to see you there in all exclamation points. It's a beautiful thing. And on YouTube, Super Chat, Gordon. Hello, Gordon. Greetings, Senator Turner and friends of Senator Turner. I love spending this hour with you. So many heartbeats beating in synchronicity. Oh, that is a beautiful word, synchronicity. I like that. So much love here. Love is what keeps people alive. Thank you for that, Gordon. Absolutely, I believe that. And thank you so much for your kind words. All right, we go into our next segment here. Georgia Democrats are miffed, baby. I like that word too, miffed by Chicago. Democrats have once again been caught using folks for votes and then caught leaving them in the dust. This time, the fight plays out around the decision where they're gonna hold the DNC convention. Southern Democrats are fuming over their party's decision to hold its 2024 national convention in Chicago area instead of the ATL. Yeah, baby, they are miffed about this. Therefore, the move as a slight against a city and a state that helped deliver Democrats, both the White House and the Senate. So baby, they probably a little more than miffed. They probably mad as a mofo. In the lead up to the decision, Atlanta boosters aggressively lobby President Biden and his allies for hosting rights, playing up the city as the cradle of civil rights movement and hammering the importance of Georgia and the South more broadly as a critical emerging battleground for Democrats. Thank you, reporting coming from the Hill. The Democratic National Committee announced on Tuesday, however, that Chicago would host the 2024 gathering, elevating a liberal city near the center of the so-called Blue Wall states of the upper Midwest and siding with union leaders who had opposed the ATL as the host site because of Georgia's contentious history with organized labor. And it sounds like Georgia was pretty much blindsided by this decision. Folks, they did not know that this was coming. For months, Atlanta's boosters worked to assure Biden and Democratic officials that the city was prepared for the event. They secured more than $20 million in financial commitments from donors and corporations and leaned heavily on an argument that it was Georgia, of course, that handed Democrats their current power in Washington. I mean, hell, if we were trying to get it in Ohio, we would say the same thing. Too bad my state is solidly red now. We don't even swing no more. We used to swing. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-wop, do-wop, do-wop. We don't even swing anymore, y'all. So, for Georgia to say they the center of the universe, I get it. I get it. They saying that. So this seems about right, though. Democrats will rally when the clock is ticking down and they need to secure a seat for the presidency. They just kind of kicked the ATL to the curb. But when those communities, often Black women, deliver and show up, because Democrats are always fond of saying, Black women, you are the backbone of the Democratic Party. Likens me to, somebody just trying to whisper sweet nothings in your ear. They are often forgotten about or not even given the time after that day. What happens when people are using you? So the reaction from Georgia Dems is not good. Let us put up what some of the Georgia Democrats had to say about this. They were so mad they wanted to cuss. It feels a little bit like a slap in the face. There's a lot that goes into this, hotels and transportation and all that. But there's the symbolism to consider too. And I think it would have been stronger statement to say, hey, Georgia has delivered for us, and we're not taking that for granted. Now, Kendra Cotton, the CEO of the New Georgia Project Action Fund, said the following: in 2020 and again in 2022, Georgia proved our status as a key battleground state, and any candidate, campaign, or political party should keep that in mind as we head into next year. Again, making it plain. So imagine, y'all, the money this would also have brought into Georgia. This would have been a perfect way to really repay the folks of Georgia. Come on, Dems. Y'all need to go ahead and get it together. Bennie, your thoughts on this? I guess we would call it family infighting here.
Yeah, I mean, well, so this is one of those things where it's kind of questionable whether or not it has a huge impact on voters, but it definitely has an impact on, the people that are like working on the campaigns, the people that are involved in the political process of getting people elected. And it's just kind of embarrassing to like insult in a lot of ways, like the people who are like actually doing the work to help win in Georgia. And so like, is it gonna make a huge difference in terms of electoral outcomes? Maybe yes, maybe no. But what it will do is definitely dampen the spirits of all the people who are working in Georgia to actually make sure that Joe Biden is the president today. And that's a pretty big deal, at least for me as a trans person. I don't know, Republicans are trying to criminalize my existence. So big thank you to the people that made that happen. And so like, this is just one of those things where like fundamentally, it's for the people that put in the work, and we should be celebrating the people that put in the work, right? Illinois is gonna stay a blue state forever. You could have any Democratic convention there any year, probably for the next 100 years. I don't see Illinois becoming a red state. And so this just seems like a really big missed opportunity, in my opinion, especially to just give a shout out to the people who put in a lot of work.
Yeah, that really is a very great point. Come on, Dems. Y'all can do better. Y'all done piss these people off. And I love your point about, to the average voter, this doesn't matter. This is inside baseball here. But to the people who rally around the party, who are true believers, this does matter to them. So we'll see what will happen. If you can imagine, Bennie and I are now leaving Georgia and we're going to the NRA, the National Rifle Association, bullies and thugs, because that's what they are. If you can imagine the NRA is getting worse and more out of control, take a look.
Little Miss Addie, who is almost 2, and Branch, who's just a few months old, they have brought us so much joy. They've brought us purpose. Now Addie, who soon will need them, I want to reassure you, she already has a shotgun and she already has a rifle. And she's got a little pony named Sparkles too, so the girl is set up.
What in the hell? I sighed deeply. 2-year-old got a gun, and this lady is just sitting up here talking about this like it is normal. What in the actual hell? All right. That was South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem speaking at the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action Leadership Forum over the weekend. The convention was held in Indianapolis. The whole event was a total nightmare. Check out this headline from Business Insider. Photos show kids as young as 6 years old handling guns at the NRA's annual meeting. Gun violence is the leading cause of death among children. And check out this tweet right here from Sharon Watts, a gun control activist and founder of Moms Demand Action. Photos of children handling guns at the NRA's annual meeting in Indianapolis this weekend by Evelyn Pick at Reuters. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death of children in America. And now I want to see, I don't know if team could put that up, put Bennie and I side by side. But I got a whole ass problem with all of this. And these are the same fools that want to talk about grooming. Then what is this? Indoctrination. Then what is this? But grooming and indoctrination, they all right with this kind of indoctrination. Teaching little kids that it's okay to just really play with guns, because they don't know what they doing, Bennie. Them kids don't know what they doing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, literally, okay, the Republican Party is just absolutely fueled by an unhinged white supremacist bloodthirst. Like, let's just call it what it is. That's why you have a story just a couple days ago of a young man literally getting shot because he accidentally went to the wrong address trying to pick up his little brother. That's why a woman in Pennsylvania, I think, was shot because she pulled up in the wrong driveway by accident. Fundamentally, these people are deranged. They are paranoid. They think that they're all John Rambo, that everybody's out to get them. They're convinced that they need to have an arsenal of weapons, and they're willing to use it, and they're so trigger happy. It is fundamentally terrifying. And the fact that they are trying to instill this unhinged paranoia into the minds of children is deeply, deeply disturbing. And then they dare to say that it's queer people that are so dangerous because we dare to suggest that kids should just be allowed to be themselves without bullying or harassment. And it's just deeply, deeply infuriating. But at the core of this is just this core white supremacist narrative that drives just this unhinged violence that the right wing loves.
Yeah, they definitely are unhinged. There's no doubt about it. I mean, kids should not have guns. They shouldn't be able to play with guns. They shouldn't. And the mentality, to your point, that's being set up for them when it comes to guns. That really what these people are, they're just making future themselves, like mini-me's. Is what that's it. That's what they're doing to these babies, and it is really horrible. And they don't care. Again, the fact of the matter is that gun violence, that death among children at the hands of guns is on the rise. And firearms have been the leading cause of death. Right? There's some reporting coming from CNN. Firearms have been the leading cause of death for US children and teens since 2020, representing 19% of all deaths for children 18 years and younger in 2021. And Vice President Mike Pence still had the audacity, if y'all can believe that, the pure, unadulterated gall to say this at the convention.
Ignoring the motivations of the trans activists who killed 3 children and 3 adults at that Christian school in Nashville, and ignoring the mental health challenges of the man who killed 5 people and injured 8 others in Louisville, President Biden and the Democrats have returned to the same tired arguments about gun control and gun confiscation. But we don't need gun control. We need crime control. We don't need lectures about the liberties of law-abiding citizens. We need solutions to protect our kids.
My God. And another sick part of this convention is the timing of it. The annual conference came on the heels of the mass shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, and Louisville, Kentucky. Between the 2 massacres, 11 people died. And to top it all off, NRA leader Wayne LaPierre threatened politicians who dare speak up about gun violence, saying the following: gun-hating politicians should never go to the bed unafraid of what this association and all of our millions of members can do to their political careers. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. So you want to talk about grooming children? How is this not grooming? So first of all, though, the threat that this man is making on members of Congress, that's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in this. So LaPierre. The other is for the vice president to be so out of touch. So in one breath, you say that you talk about these massacres and then you label all trans people. So that ain't lost on us right there. And then on the other breath, you say that, anybody that wants to take away, don't take away guns. We don't need gun control. We need crime control. We need an America that understands that the Second Amendment is not absolute, and that this obsession with guns is getting people killed. Literally. And it is sick. It is a sick obsession. And it's just politicians like Pence and the politicians that are at that NRA function, because when most gun owners are polled, They agree with common sense gun control. It is these politicians, it is the owner donors. And I'm gonna tell you something, LaPierre, he needs to be arrested because he just threatened, right? I mean, did I read his quote correctly? Let me do this one more time. Gun-hating politicians should never go to bed unafraid of what the association and all of our millions of members can do to their political careers. Hello, Department of Justice. That sounds like a damn threat to me. Now you got an organization that's all about guns and the freedom to use the gun any kind of way you want, to have military style weapons out there in the streets, just wholesale threatened politicians. I think he need to be picked up and investigated, Benny.
No, like seriously, and this is one of those things, look, like people aren't willing to talk about this, but this is the harsh reality. Republicans for a very long time have had the silent approval and acceptance of like these terrorists, or the other way around, right? They give the silent approval to these terrorists. That's how they got abortion rights. That's how they got Democrats to stop talking about abortion rights, which ended up getting us a Roe v. Wade being overturned. Quite literally, you had all these extreme right wingers doing like bomb threats against Planned Parenthoods. Now they're doing it against anybody that is just willing to recognize the existence of trans people. They're doing it to drag shows and queer nightclubs and stuff like this, right? It's this constant threat of violence that exists from the right. The Republicans say, oh, we definitely don't like that, but they're not really doing anything against it. And like, what are the Democrats even doing on top of this to actually like deal with this? Where are the federal investigations to say like, hey, who's inspiring this? Could we throw incitement charges on some of the people that are pushing this? And the one note I really want to touch on, and this is what's so important, okay, is what Mike Pence said in that speech, like right at the end where he was talking about protecting our children. You'll notice that that's very disconnected from the data about children being put in danger by guns. Now, why is this? Now, this is where it's so important that people understand history, okay? And take a look at the tactics used by the Nazi Party back in 1930s Germany, because there are these 14 words that these right wingers will say. There are these 14 words that the Nazis would say. And it's so funny how many of these right wing politicians come as close as they possibly can to exactly quoting the literal Nazis on that when they're pushing this rhetoric against trans people, when they talk about crime, because you and I both know they don't care about crime. They don't actually care about real crime. They don't care about like corrupt bankers. They don't care about they don't care about like burglaries. They don't care about actual real life crimes, okay? When they say crime, we all know exactly what they mean. We all know exactly what they mean. We know who they want to send the police after. We know who they want to throw in jail, okay? And it's not people in the suburbs that are like smoking weed or anything like that, okay? It fundamentally, at the end of the day, it is just part of their white supremacist agenda, and their language reveals itself. But they just use enough dog whistles so that if I say what I'm saying right now, you have a million people who say, oh, you're reading into this too far. But it's really clear as day to anybody that has any understanding of history.
Yeah, no, it is. And everything about the NRA convention is disturbing. I mean, we are dealing with people, and this is not. The Second Amendment is one of the many amendments to the damn Constitution of the United States of America. But they treat that amendment, and a lot of these people, Benny, and I'm a Christian girl. I've shared this with the viewers. People have seen me all across the country, and even internationally. People know this. My mother was a minister, so I was raised in the Black church. I get it. And sometimes religion can be used to edify and lift, and religion could be used to harm. Got it. Let me put the harm part in the parking lot. This is the thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There's a golden rule in the Christian context, and that whole golden rule is really connected to all the major religions. But see, they don't think about that. There's scripture in the Bible that says that when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I needed clothing, did you clothe me? When I was in prison, did you come see me? When there was random gun violence all over this country and mass shootings, did you do something to stop children from dying? And I'm emphasizing children because any civilized nation, Benny, any civilized nation would look at what has been happening across this country over decades to say that, you know what, it is tragic when anybody gets shot. in a way that's not, self-defense of somebody else's life. It's tragic. But we're gonna put some extra special tragedy on that when people are going to schools and killing babies, period, whoever they are. And this ain't about how anybody identifies. This is about gun violence is out of control. And part of the reason why it is out of control is because we are a gun worshiping culture. And I'm saying that to the so-called Christians, Ben, because I bring that, because I bet you the overwhelming majority of them mofos that was at that NRA identify as Christians. You see where I'm going with it? See, they identify as Christians. What would Jesus really do? The rebel that he was, the rebellious rebel, revolutionary, hanging out with the misfits, challenging the power structure of his day. What the hell would he be doing? He wouldn't be doing this. And that's the only reason why I'm using Christianity as the key example point here. Because those people there consider themselves Christians and they sitting up here let babies tote guns and indoctrinating those kids and grooming them damn kids. And then they want to paint other people as the other, whether it's transgender, other folks. And as you said, when they talk about law and order, you might as well go ahead and say they talking about black people in particular and then poor people in general. That is what we are dealing with. And I bet you, Ben, and I wasn't even there, but I bet you 99.9% of the people that was at that NRA convention were white. Guarantee you. And that's not to say there are black people who believe in the Second Amendment, got it. Because there was a time that these very same people didn't stand up for black people's rights to carry guns. Look, we couldn't carry, some of my ancestors came up a time they couldn't have a damn gun. These people are hypocrites, America, and they're dangerous. And any group that would say that their right to bear arms is more important than people to be able to bear life, to live, there's something wrong with them. And there's something wrong with these politicians who answer to these fools. The Second Amendment is no more important than any other damn amendment. And guess what? The framers couldn't have never even conceived. And I would love your thoughts about this. I mean, I don't think that the framers could have conceived. First of all, they was imperfect as hell like everybody else. So we ain't gonna talk about the racism, the sexism and all that, because we talking about guns. But Bennie, even if we put all that, I don't believe the framers could not have conceived of the dangerous nature of weapons in a 21st century context. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, literally, people forget the story of like George Washington sending in the army to make sure that, I forgot what state it was, but making sure that they paid taxes, right? Because they didn't want to pay federal taxes. And George Washington was like, yeah, we're gonna send in the army, make you pay taxes. If he would have got met with a bunch of random right wingers from today with like AR-15s, you bet the Second Amendment would have never made its way into the Constitution in the first place.
Yeah, no, that is a very, very, very important point. Lord Henry. All right, we're gonna stay on top of this, America. We gotta do something about this. This ain't cool. It's just not cool at all. There's something wrong with the NRA. And Justice Department, Lapierre just threatened elected officials. Y'all need to check, go get them. Haul them in and question them, okay? Because he's dangerous. He just threatened a whole bunch of politicians. He did. And I remember when these people used to converge on the Ohio legislature too. They everywhere. They not just on the federal level. All right, we're going back to some more member comments. We have on Twitch, Crypt. The NRA is pretty much a fascist organization to me. Look who's supporting them. Totally agree with you on that, Crypt. They are a fascist organization, no doubt. And guess what? They're gonna get away with this unscathed. But hopefully, because I know the Justice Department is watching Unbossed. Hopefully they're gonna take the advice that Bennie and I just gave. Y'all need to go and check this dude out because he just threatened elected officials. All right, we're going, Representative Santos is at it again. Everyone's favorite liar is back at it again because liars gonna lie. This is what this man does. This is who he is, that's right. We're talking about Rep. George Santos. Listen to what he said to Anderson Cooper.
George Santos, sure, he doesn't have the support of his party on Capitol Hill or supported the party leadership back in his district who've called for his resignation, or the support of most of his constituents who in recent polling say they want him to resign. And yes, he faces multiple federal and local investigations into his finances after he admitted to lying about everything from his college degree to where he worked and even his heritage. But when you have no shame, none of that matters. Today, he announced he's going to run for re-election.
When you have no shame, none of that matters, as Anderson Cooper enumerated the multiple lies that have come out of the mouth of Representative Santos. He absolutely has no shame whatsoever. But let us put up this tweet from the representative announcement. I am proudly announcing my bid for re-election for New York 3rd. This is about taking back our country and restoring greatness back to New York to support Donate Here. Man, I got to chuckle on this. Congressman George Santos 2024 re-election campaign. Baby, just go ahead and donate to me. And let us remind you, the month after being elected, Rep. George Santos, the freshman congressman, was discovered to have lied about major aspects of his life, including where he went to school, where he worked, and about being Jewish. Since those revelations, a myriad of other fabrications, if we want to call that to be kind, have come to light, along with the fact that he is the subject of multiple, not one, but multiple investigations. And the voters want him gone. NY3 voters say Santos should resign, 78% to 13%, including 71% of Republicans. Oh, Santos. Go ahead, baby. Go on and shoot for the stars. Your thoughts on this, baby?
I mean, literally, if you only have the support of 13% of your district, and not even necessarily just the support, just the like, I guess he shouldn't resign. Like, like that's such a, like, we're really, really lowering the bar here. Like, so he's obviously gonna lose, right? Like, he's obviously gonna lose his next election, which means.
Bennie. I don't know. Sorry to interrupt. I don't know about the obvious, but go ahead.
Like, I'm just waiting for the day that George Santos is like completely irrelevant and like he starts some sort of podcast titled like Just the Facts or something like that, right? Like, it's gonna be something that is just too ridiculous. Because it's inevitable. That is just so inevitable. And like, I don't know, to get 70+% of Republicans to say that you resign, you have to really, really do a bad job. I mean, you're talking about people that are willing to support people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay? So the bar has been lowered. So congratulations on that, George.
But you know what? That is such a good point, Bennie. And even Jackson White, when you talk about, he starts a podcast titled The Facts. A few interviews ago, we were talking about him, and Jackson White said, "Bruh, you would be better served just to leave the Congress and start like a podcast or a reality show. They will love you for this. You will have half the trouble. You'll make even more money, and you will truly be in your element." Just the facts, but it's obvious that, on a more serious note, the man is not, he has no self-awareness, Bennie. I mean, just none.
Yeah, not even like a little bit, like, or he just has no shame, like, or both, I guess. Like, really, he's just like, I mean, it would be nice to be able to go through life so blissfully unaware that like you're just universally despised.
I know, blissfully unaware. You just do things. You know what I kind of wish, like, for people who are working for absolute good, and again, nobody's perfect. So I'm not saying that people who are working for good are perfect, but I just wish, those of us on the progressive side, like that we were kind of like blissfully unaware about what neoliberals had to say. And we just keep on pushing on, because something, the traits that like a Santos carries, if those traits are utilized for the right reasons, there's something about just pushing through, no matter, not giving a damn what anybody else has to say.
Yeah.
Well,
Meanwhile, George.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, George Santos just reminds me of this like legendary like tweet that lives in my head rent free. And it's something along the lines of like, I don't even necessarily believe what I'm saying. I'm just talking recreationally. Like that is George Santos in a nutshell.
That is George Santos. I mean, to be George Santos, I don't know. They say ignorance is bliss, I guess. But I don't think he necessarily, because ignorance just means not knowing. The man, I don't know. Maybe you're right, but maybe he is blissfully unaware. So ignorance is bliss in this case. Santos is the gift that keeps on giving, y'all. We will keep revisiting the antics of this elected official from time to time so that we can all analyze and have a good laugh. Well, that is our show for today. It was absolutely fabulous, Benny, to have you on the show. Can't wait to have you back. And for each and every one of you, it was fabulous that you were able to join us today. And again, I am on the road and I appreciate you all so very much. And you know what I want you to do about this time. I always, and I know it can be daunting sometimes, I always want you to keep the faith, but I want you to marry with that faith a whole bunch of fight. Until next time.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Ma? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of The Watch List. There's a lot to watch today. There's a lot going on. As a matter of fact, we might even have a chuckle or two. And you know what? Speaking of that, watch this.
There was nothing more satisfying than seeing fridges full of untouched Bud Light, normally the best seller. We all drank a local IPA beer instead. So did most everybody else. Now, I was going to make a big deal about this. I'm proud of our stand that we took until primetime producers told me the local beer we were drinking is actually owned by Anheuser-Busch.
Pete Hegseth on Fox News bragging about their Budweiser Bud Light boycott, only to find out that, looky here, the local IPA they drink is owned by the same damn company. To laugh with me about this is my guest, Mayor Mondale Robinson. As I say mayor because he's the mayor of of North Carolina, Enfield, North Carolina, and he's also a Rebel HQ contributor. That's just a nice little starter. It's not really a full story, but how you doing here, Mondale?
This Bud's for you. Or not.
I saw this yesterday, and I was like, I think the reason so many of these conservatives love them some capitalism is because they have no idea how it works. Zero clue. So you mean a huge corporation can own smaller ones and continue to monopolize damn near the entire market? That's weird how that works. What system is this? Socialism? Communism?
Yeah. And the funny part about it for me is like these Republicans are on this rant about all these corporations that are being woke, but they had no problem when corporations telling gay couples you can't get your flowers and your cupcakes here for your wedding. Interesting how they care about what businesses say now.
It kind of switches up every once in a while, which means in the next election cycle, we'll see what the next target they have once this one fails as well. That's why the fight is here. Thank you guys for joining me as well. Since you guys are sitting here hanging out with us, go ahead, like, subscribe, maybe even share that stream. And once we're done with this damn show, we're going to put some of these clips up also on the Watchlist TYT page over on YouTube, Facebook, all the fun places. Go check them out there too. And when you're there, share that too. Do me a favor, why don't you? Last point before we get started on these mini stories that we have, and there's one that's absolutely my favorite. That's an absolute barn burner. I just want to say, yes, this is a Dubs hat. Yes, this is a Dubs shirt. What's up, May Money? I appreciate you. My last thought is free Draymond Green. That's all I'm gonna say. Free Draymond, because he was not wrong in that situation. If you know, you know. Let's go ahead and start this first story, you guys.
A 20-year-old woman was fatally shot after turning up the wrong driveway in upstate New York. Police say Kaylin Gillis was in the car with 3 friends looking for a friend's house in the rural area of Hebron, New York on Saturday night. After mistakenly pulling into the wrong driveway, police say Kevin Monahan came out of the house and fired 2 shots. One of the shots struck Gillis. They then drove to the neighboring town of Salem to get cell service and call for help. Emergency responders performed CPR on Gillis, but she was pronounced dead.
If this story sounds familiar to something we've been hearing about, yes, it actually is. We've been hearing about the story of Ralph Yarrow in Kansas City, Missouri, that was shot on a porch. And here's another story just 2 days after that occurrence that happened to 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis. Shot dead, though, this time even more tragically. The sheriff had a press conference and he talked about how he personally knew the family. Let's watch.
From all indications, she was, like I said, an innocent young girl who was out with friends looking for another friend's house. I know for a fact that she comes from a good family, a very good family, and I know them personally. And, you know, she was a young girl that was taken way too young.
Investigators do not believe that there was any interaction between the group of people in the car and the suspect before he opened fire.
Absolutely no interaction between the two until some gunshots were ringing out. And as you heard there, the police, I believe it's the chief there, talking about the whole thing, the sheriff there talking about the whole thing and how he personally knew them. We've said many times, as the gun violence continues to grow, it's going to touch everyone. It already has, probably, but if it hasn't yet, it's coming to a door near you. So directly there, we've had governors of the past 2 states that have had shootouts like this happen. They've known personally some folks involved in it. It continues to spread. And also, the other same common thought here, she comes from a good family. Why do we have to point out how kids, in this case, she's not a child, but a young adult, 20 years old, comes from a good family? Because maybe if she came from a bad family, or if Ralph came from a bad family and he had some kind of criminal record that they have to not talk about. If he had any of those things, then maybe he did deserve to be shot. Maybe she did deserve to be shot for driving up to the wrong address looking for a friend's house. It shouldn't matter. Those are excuses to hold on to your guns over young folks' lives. So let's get some details about this person who killed her. He's a 65-year-old man. His name is Kevin Monahan. He's charged with second-degree murder. Police officers responded to the home from where the shots were fired and found him to be uncooperative, is what they said, that he refused to exit his residence and speak with police. He was taken into custody hours later. Pause one more time as we look at Monahan, I believe his name is. Monahan. Imagine if you shot someone, killed him, and then the cops show up, and you decide to have a standoff with them with your weapons and whatever other weapons you may have in the home. Just figure how long that might last before your house is riddled with bullets. We just did a story yesterday where cops showed up to the wrong address. No one said anything. No one refused to come out. Someone answered the door with his gun in his hand, and he was murdered. So just pointing out how this guy continued to get the preferential treatment there. Maybe they're worried. I'm not going to put any onus on the police on this particular thing. But still, so we see where this whole thing has gone. We're going to get to updates about the Ralph Yarl case as well. But first, Mayor Robinson, your thoughts here of how this keeps on happening.
Yeah, it keeps on happening because American politicians and our society does not deem it wrong. If this young lady was living in any other country, she'd still be alive. This is absolutely disgusting, and it's connected to the fact that last year alone, 15.6 million guns were sold in America. That is disgusting. That is disgusting. It also relates to the fact that we've had more than 100 mass shootings in this country already this year. Almost 12,000 people murdered by guns this year. It is disgusting, and until people are outraged by it, and like you said, until it touches everybody's household, it's not going to be a problem. And we should not be talking about gun violence in the state of this is a good family, bad family situation. It is an American addiction problem. Addictions to guns, because Republicans and other politicians are selling fear. Fear. These white people that own guns, 5 and 6 guns, are afraid of everything, and it's showing up in how they interact with their neighbors.
If you don't and if you don't think these laws that they passed, or at least the promotion of the stand your ground laws, as we've seen over the years, if you think that's not part of encouraging folks to hold on to your guns and use them any way you want, we've legislated a law to help back your indiscriminate shooting. And of course, we want you to have more guns. What do you think will happen? Because of course, the first thing it said is he was coming to get me, or you don't know what Ralph was about to do. You have no idea what Caitlin was about to do when she drove up at the edge of that long driveway in some rural part of New York. It doesn't have to matter, but he at least is charged with second-degree murder. How about the charges for the man who shot and didn't kill Ralph Yarl, though? He's 84 years old. His name is Andrew Lester. He's also been taken into custody, and people were wondering then why this wasn't happening immediately, considering the devastating approach to this whole thing. So he's facing charges of assault in the first degree and armed criminal action. He's facing first-degree assault and armed criminal action. So on Tuesday, he was also taken into custody, and the sheriff's office released this mugshot of his sorry ass. There's one question that was around that, though, and I had to find out because this was starting to swirl. People were starting to get upset, and luckily I found an answer as far as those charges, because they seemed kind of light. When asked why Lester was not being charged with attempted murder, Clay County prosecutor Zachary Thompson explained that the possible sentence under assault was actually more severe. I'll look this up a little bit. It could be a random thing. It's probably state by state, but this thing in particular about this whole idea of first-degree assault versus attempted murder. It's about the level of how much you can actually prove it. When it comes to attempted murder, you have to a point, prove that the person was planning it, wanted to murder the person when they did what they did, and then when they fired, say, the shots or administered the stab wounds, whatever way that they looked to kill someone, you have to prove that that was their final intent and not just extreme bodily harm. But extreme bodily harm could be given to first-degree criminal assault or whatever the language was for this, which at the end of the day, both could carry life sentences. So the result, as far as jail time, ends up around the same. And when it comes to this guy who's 84 years old, I'm banking like 5 years is about it for this guy. let's jump to this next story, you guys. So there's updates at least on that and more devastating information there. Protect your kids. You guys, if you're at the grocery store, make sure you don't reach into your pockets too quickly. If you're driving down the street, make sure you don't reach into your glove compartment because someone might think you're shooting and then they'll shoot first. This is America in 2023. Okay, you guys, now I'm ready for this next story.
I realized, like your job, I heard the other day, said, I heard 10 or 12 people going to the sheriff. I said, let's get 20. They don't have a goddamn clue what they're getting into.
Oh, yeah,
not
because
this day and age.
But everybody.
I'm gonna tell you something. If it was back in the day, would Alan Marshall take a damn blackjack, whoop their ass, and throw them in the cell? I'd run for sheriff.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that no more.
I know. Take them down here on Mud Creek and hang them up with the damn rope.
Yeah.
But you can't do
the
that.
Thing about it is,
they got more rights than we got.
These are just some random guys talking in the backwoods somewhere in Alabama about how they want to lynch black folks. No, these are folks that are in charge. These are people that are in positions of power to do just that. These are Oklahoma officials from McCarthy County, and they were caught on audio talking about murder, laughing about people dying, and specifically in this case, talking about how they can't go back to the good old days of lynching black folks, because if I could do that then, I'd be sheriff right now. So as we continue to act like our country is advanced so much, we see things like this. Some of the things that they talked about, because there's much more, was lynching black folks, as you heard there, murdering and burying journalists, and making fun of a woman who died in a fire, acting like she's a piece of meat, literally. We'll get to all that. So let's go to the next part about this, because look, these folks from the Curtin Gazette News, which is a small town newspaper, one of the few that's still just print only, they had suspicions about these folks, these officials, and the way that they talk about everyone, and they don't like the way that this particular newspaper has been covering them or exposing them. So this is what they had to say about some of these journalists, the very ones who exposed them. Watch.
What they really don't know is they...
And that's the thing about it. 20 years ago, I would have done something like that. 20 years ago, I wasn't in a political position. You know?
They're insignificant in my life.
Yes.
Really. They bring
Don't
that
say
to the
this,
table.
you know.
What goes around goes around.
It will. I told you it will.
Yeah.
I know where two big deep holes are if you ever need them.
I got an excavator.
And these are like pre-dug. Yeah, but the thing of it is, you know.
We actually told the truth.
I've known 2 or 3 hitmen that were very quiet guys.
Yeah.
And would cut no fucking mercy.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, because it was all mafia around Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
Officials talking about murdering journalists. They've got hitmen available that do things very quietly and viciously. They got a couple holes already dug for these journalists. Which country does this sound like? All these small town backwoods areas, I'm not even sure if this is one of them. It could be even more expansive than that. They talk very freely and openly about their murderous beliefs. There's more, though. Mondale, I feel like I need to let you in first because there's so much to already talk about. These things have been exposed, and there are some questions for action, but I'm not sure what's going to happen yet.
Before any of these actions happen out, we should first play out the circumstance that everybody that's been charged by this sheriff or anybody in his department should bring. If you're black, bring your case back up, get a lawyer, because we see that there's racism embedded in this culture. The fact that you are this comfortable in a space with this many people having this conversation, I hate to see what your private conversation is about. You may be talking about the bodies you buried. These people are talking about a sheriff talking about he knows 2 or 3 hitmen that are quiet and cuts no mercy. Where are these hitmen? Where are they? Why aren't you? What kind of lawless? This is the Wild Wild West. But we also know this is the America that we live in. We know that they're talking about stringing up, going back to the days where you could string up black bodies in public square and there'd be no repercussions. And the fact that you can't do that means that black people have more rights than them. What they're really saying is white people have no right or obligation to follow or respect any rights that any black people have. And the fact that they're being made to do that is problematic for them. This is absolutely disgusting that public officials, allegedly public officials, are showing up in this manner. But hey, this is America, and we should not be surprised. When we pretend that we're surprised, we give space for white people to continue to act as if this is not the norm for black people in this country.
Well, that's for somebody to protect something like that. I'm glad you brought it up that way, because I was just writing down for folks who support the police broadly and blindly and say everything a police officer does is perfectly fine because he never messes with me. If that's your thought process and you hear something like this, then what does your brain do? What's the next step for you? Is it, oh, I'm going to dismiss that out of my brain because I need my narrative to continue to live? Or would you then be the most incensed about this? You should be the most upset about this because your reality has now been challenged with some real reality, and you should be thinking, we need to clean this up so that my belief in the police system can go back to being pure, because you've just been shown how bad it is. And if you were actually on the other side of these declarations and these plans, would you be okay with it? Would you be okay with these police officers talking about potentially murdering your wife, your husband, your kids, your family, you, because of who you are? The thought process doesn't go that far. It's just be quiet. It's really not a problem. It doesn't affect me. So we've talked so far about journalists. Maybe you guys hate journalists, so you're okay with that. And we've also talked about black folks, and they want lynched again. Okay, fine, you hate black folks too, so who cares? How about just a regular citizen who was a victim of a fire and the way that they laugh and talk about her? Let's listen to that.
On the bark body, we wrap it up in tinfoil to preserve the body and stuff like that. And then we get all the body parts and stuff like that. And Carollo was out there too.
All the body part. Oh, she come apart.
Yeah, just the burnt bodies.
I know. I picked up on
and
they really fall apart when they're burnt.
Yeah.
Have you ever had barbecue?
That's another.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm hungry.
Carollo looks at the face.
Glasses
and they got to wrap the tinfoil and put her in the body bag. Carollo goes, "You do know what we got to do now, right?" And Face goes, "No, what?" She goes, "You got to preheat the oven 350 degrees, leave her in there for 15 minutes." And she went,
Get the feeling maybe some of these hitmen are out there in the office themselves, because he talked about how cold and calculated and quiet they are. Only problem is this guy's really loud. Let's take a look at the McCurtain County Sheriff, Kevin Clardy. Clardy? Doesn't matter. Let's look at him. The governor of Oklahoma has called for the resignations of both this sheriff and other top officials in this rural county after they were recorded talking about all this stuff. Beating, killing, and burying folks. A father-son team of local reporters is those two that they were talking about, and all the rest that we've heard. The Willingham family, who runs the newspaper, by the way, that's exposed them. Again, it's a print-only newspaper. It's one of the few left in the country. They've turned over these recordings, and how did they get them? Apparently, they slipped some audio equipment in this room where they were going to be meeting, potentially knowing the types of things that they like to talk about, and how all sheriffs and these officials have to do is go, "No, we didn't. We're the good old boys. We're very fair," until you hear the reality of what is happening. One more part here, Mondale. For nearly a year, they've suffered intimidation, ridicule, and harassment based solely on their efforts to report the news from McCurtain County, is what the statement said from these folks there that got this information. None of the four officials named by Stitt, who's the governor, could be reached for comment. But late Monday, the McCurtain County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that the recording was illegally obtained and appears to be altered. Mondale, I can't wait for them to tell me what was really in those conversations and how those words that they said were taken out of context.
Yeah, you can't make a context about knowing a hitman bad. I mean, you can't fix that. You also can't fix the fact that you want to go back to days when people can be hanging or hung. I'm sorry with this idea that it appears to be illegal, and also it seems to be altered. Altered what? What's altered? The altering as it came out. That's the altering. The fact that the world knows how you believe and think. I think the idea, though, what we see here is we are so quick to point our fingers at China and countries in Central South America about killing and doing certain things to journalists. We are silent. We're silent in this country as we see Fox News attack real journalism. We see Donald Trump, and now we see what's happening with sheriffs in rural counties across this country when people don't like what's happening. These people they put those recordings there because they knew that they had been suffering from this for more than a year, and nobody was believing them because, like you said, them good old boys, and ain't no way they acting up like that. They love the rule of law when in actuality they don't give a damn about law. They care about respect for what they believe in, which seems to be white supremacy, and a time where only white people had laws that were that should be followed as it benefit them. I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I think this way of thinking is is the norm for police departments across this country. And if it wasn't, it wouldn't be so many people dying year after year at the hands of police officers, especially people that look like you and me.
We've seen the text messages. We're seeing this out in Oklahoma somewhere. We've seen the text message from the LA County sheriffs. We've seen, and that's a huge department. And so it doesn't really matter the city that you're in or the size of it or the demographics. And matter of fact, if there's more diversity, you just might find more of this because they have an opportunity to go after the others that everyone's always targeting. So one last thought here. Imagine you're a black person. Try for a minute. And you want to take a cross-country road trip because I've done that before. You find yourself in the middle of some town in the middle of Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. And then these folks talk like this. Do you think you feel any kind of way safe? Do you feel like you feel safe in your country? Because we have this weird mindset of if I go over to Iraq, Iran, any other country, and I don't know anything what's going on there, I should watch my back and try and figure it out because something wild may go down. And you know what? I have those thoughts too. But you know what most minorities in this country have a thought about when they go through across our country to unknown areas like that? I could end up missing and no one could ever find me again. And the authorities here could potentially be responsible for it. And that's a reality we have to deal with in the country. And as we tell those stories, you go, you know how far we've gone? Because that doesn't affect those people that like to shoot down these types of things until you hear it. Every time someone talks about how these libs want to get rid of the police or defund them or reallocate funds, ask them what they think of these types of interactions and why that's okay. Because they never answer that question. I've talked long enough. Let's take our first break. Looking forward to some of your comments. When we get back, it's absolutely my favorite story of the day. I'm going to take a few minutes on it, but we're talking about Ali Alexander. And don't act like you don't know. I've got lots of thoughts. Let's do that when we get back.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Back on the watch list, you guys, there's a lot to get to. So I'm going to read this one comment, especially since it's apparently about a beautiful man. Mickey C. the Silver-Haired Dragon says, love having Mayor Mondale on. Also, love his point of view, his politics, and his direct convos. Also, easy on the eyes, too. I'm willing to promote and normalize these compliments coming into these fellas that end up on my show, how pretty they are, because you know what, it gets spread so much to all of our female contributors and their looks, regardless of their thoughts. I'm willing to accept it for this particular case. Good, Mondale, you're a pretty young man.
Thank you, brother.
Let's go ahead and start this next story. It's wild.
How dare you? You disrespect the Western tradition. You disrespect America. You know nothing about the founding. Go home. Go home. Ho. Ho. Go home. In the coming days, I'm going to reveal that Marjorie Taylor Greene, in my summation and the summation of lawyers, committed a crime. That crime is going to be handed to the state of Georgia. And the state of Georgia will decide whether they adjudicate that crime or not. The House Ethics Committee and House Rules must expel Marjorie Taylor Greene when this evidence comes to light. Ho, go home. I am done with you. You are lukewarm. I am spitting you out of my mouth. You played me and no more. I was fighting and bleeding for this country, Marge. I came here before you. I will be here after you. Ho, go home.
Go home, ho. Go home. Yo, I have no idea how I didn't heard that audio before, but there's L.A. Alexander there screaming about Marjorie Taylor Greene needing to go home. Yeah, that's older audio, but there's more going on. L.A. Alexander, in case you got to know, part of the Stop the Steal rally organizer, close confidant of former President Donald Trump, and close buddies with a bunch of people that I'm about to mention right now. So there's drama going on. So, of course, this is happening. Oh, they fighting. Mama, they fighting. Let's check this out from Right Wing Watch. They pointed this whole thing out. L.A. Alexander has admitted to soliciting penis pictures from teenage boys. This is part of this whole expose that's come through. Daily Beast pointed this out, but apparently there was interviews going on as he's cooperating with investigations, and it turns out that he's had to admit to doing this. I'm gonna read you just the first couple, sentences, paragraphs here in the statement that was just up. This is what L.A. Alexander said. This is too gay. While my audience is familiar with me battling same-sex attraction, others aren't as familiar. I apologize for any inappropriate messages sent over the years. Forgive me. While having repented before God and confessed at church, I want my supporters and those involved to hear my apology today. When I flirted or others have flirted with me, I flexed my credentials or dropped corny pickup lines. Other times, I've been careless and should have qualified those coming up to me's identities during flirtatious banter at the start. Nothing unlawful has occurred. And he starts talking about seeing these false claims, and they've been cherry picking. And then, apparently there's some context clues behind him asking for penis pictures from 16, 17-year-olds, 15-year-old boys. There's different contexts to those things. But still, this is what he's apologizing for, which, of course, led to Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting this. This is disgusting textbook predation of underage boys, and Nick Fuentes is in on it. Now it's on Nick Fuentes, and she even hashtagged Nick Knew. In exchange for recanting his accusation, Nick Fuentes and Ali Alexander offered to get him a job in politics. She's speaking specifically about one person that was detailed in his interactions with Ali Alexander. So there was a bit of a quid pro quo for sexual favors to be given some professional opportunities. It's pretty standard stuff, but it's still disgusting, predatory, and in this case, pedophilia. Weird. L.A. Alexander, obviously, he rolls with people like Nick Fuentes, Milo Yiannopoulos, Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's odd how that works. All these MAGA types, and the fighting is now going down. Hal Sparks points out some of these things after Marge then tweeted that as if she has nothing to do with it, and then everyone else forgot that she has everything to do with these interactions. So Fuentes is now facing some more backlash, and partially from Marge. from his own supporters over whether he ignored these warnings that Ali Alexander, his friend and ally, was allegedly soliciting these nude pictures from young men within Fuentes' movement. So maybe while he was moving around and campaigning with Nick, maybe Nick knew about it and he was like, you know what? We're trying to do something more hateful and disgusting. And we want to talk about pedophilia with other folks, but we actually don't want to stop it within our own ranks. That's what's being accused of him by people like Marge and others. So where does Milo Yiannopoulos fall into this? He began exposing all these things. Some of the stuff came forward. Maybe that's why Alexander decided to confess. And he said he's doing it because they had a falling out over this whole grift back and forth over the Kanye West campaign for president that everyone knew wasn't going to go anywhere except for these three idiots. And now they're caught in this tornado. So Kanye did one thing right as far as this whole thing. Let me give you one particular exchange that happened and that was revealed in this Daily Beast piece. This is an interaction with one Aiden Duncan. In 2017, Aiden Duncan, who was 15 years old, he was from Colorado, he was interested in right-wing politics. He sent Ali nude pictures after Ali he asked him for them. That's according to an account that Duncan gave in March of this year. In a September 4th, 2017 exchange about an upcoming trip Alexander was planning, he purportedly told Duncan he would introduce the teenager to Milo and speculated about whether the boy would be Alexander's, quote, arm candy, and suggested that the boy would have to be entertaining. And he said, rolling with me? Mostly, I'll have an entourage. Depends, huh? I mean, depends if it's me babysitting you during the day, then no, I don't have kids. If it's something more entertaining, then maybe. All depends on what we're up to. No matter what, I'll let you meet Milo. There's probably 5 people I'll introduce to him, but who will be my arm candy? The one with me always in VIP, in and out. Well, that is to be determined by the boy who plays his cards the most correct. There's so much more going on here, but just that interaction there and talking about how he's soliciting this arm candy from a teenage boy at the time 15 to go around and be entertaining rather than him having to babysit, apparently for these possibilities of getting in on some right-wing politics. That's how you get introduced to right-wing politics. Then after you get introduced in this manner, then you have to start talking about how these folks that are attracted to certain folks, you hate them. This is the basis for the Republican Party, apparently. So there's a little bit more. The fallout is now coming out as we see these revelations come. Nick Fuentes went on Dalton Claude Felter's podcast. I hadn't heard of this guy before, but apparently he's pretty deplorable. But he went on his podcast, I believe it was today, to talk about the resolution to this whole problem. Watch.
I talked to Ali, and he understands how strongly people feel and how strongly I feel, and he's bowing out of public life. So nobody has to worry about that. He's bowing out of public life, and I urged him to do that. So, you're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Let's have some popcorn while watching this. It's great. So these guys are fighting over whether or not they're big enough pedophiles or supporters of pedophilia and whether or not they're the right-wing guys, and all these fights are going down. And you know what else Nick Fuentes then wrote after Marge has decided to come forward and really start burning these bridges? He said Marge Taylor Greene is having her tweets ghostwritten by homosexual pedophile Milo and collaborating with the Daily Beast to smear me. What a disgusting pig this woman is. Oh, Mayor Mondale, they're fighting. I'm gonna let you talk while I finish swallowing this popcorn.
Man, I need some popcorn for this fight too. Listen, who cares about the boxing match, the championship match that's happening this weekend when we got Republicans swinging like this? But let's be honest right here, right? First of all, there's a couple things at play. The only reason Marjorie spoke up is because both of these guys have been excommunicado from the Donald Trump's network, right? Nick Fuentes, who came out upset with Donald Trump. And then also you got Ali, who said that Marjorie committed a crime when she was supporting Kevin McCarthy's candidacy for Speaker of the House. This is all this is about. This is her way to get back at them. She don't really care if they're pedophiles or not. What we're learning, though, about this Republican Party, what we're learning is it was never about Pizzagate. It was just about them projecting to keep people away from Matt Gates. I mean, from their gates, whatever they are, right? Because what we continue to see, person after person, we keep seeing these claims come up about folk knowing and also being okay with children being solicited for not just pictures, but also sex. This is an absolute problem that they need to deal with inside their ranks, and not just those on the outside, but also those in the party. And I think we are seeing a willingness from this Republican Party to sit next to anybody as long as you vote the right way. There's no platform for this party other than being loyal to the MAGA ideas. Not the person himself, just the far right ideas.
Nothing is real with these folks. Listen, if you start talking about how you can expose someone for all their crimes and their misdeeds and their texts with young boys, that means you knew beforehand and you're withholding that information for what? Continue to access, continue to put possibility for power, money, anything like that. Last I heard, that's illegal. But they don't even realize that as they're going talking about how they're going to expose these crimes. Ali Alexander did. I think you mentioned this. This is what he tweeted. Marjorie Taylor Greene loved me until in December of 2022, exposed the fact that she committed a crime. What was the crime? And you exposed her. That means you knew about it. Why were you holding on to it, Ali? He said, now she's trying to intimidate me and other right-wingers with these smears and lies. So he goes to the same thing that they were talking about and how he's got receipts. How long have you had those receipts? Did they just fall into your lap once this whole horrible story came out about the things you were doing towards young boys? Still, there's more, Mondale. There's other associates like Michael Cernovich, Jack Posobiec, and also others like them. Here's one. There's Cernovich. That screenshot was used here by Michael Hayden. He's a senior investigative reporter and spokesperson for the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he pointed out how they have this connection here. Now, in having that connection, we know Cernovich was a part of this trio of folks that was talking about Pizzagate and things like that. They've always pushed these types of stories to get people to think, hey, I need to attack certain folks, go to this particular location, even continue to progress this hate. And now, when this is all falling apart, people like Cernovich have this to say in response to this fallout. Again, they did work together. There's no denying that. So he says this: the Ali behavior is inexplicable and inexcusable. I would remove him from leadership if he were part of anything I do, which he's not. He needs rehab and an exorcist. That's his solution. God can save his immortal soul, which needs to be his sole focus. People are trying to dogpile me via association. I don't give an F. These people disgust me and they don't even care about the issues of young men and boys being exploited. He just said that. It's a gotcha game to them. This problem is everywhere and it's demonic. Mondale, the projection continues. So it's everyone else that's using pedophilia and groomer language as a gotcha game, or as a political game, or as a way to get ahead and fool enough MAGA minions to actually listen to the things they're saying. When in reality, you associate with these types of folks, you know what these folks are doing. If you're not doing it, and you cover it up because you're still looking for more power and control over those same folks who you're fooling. That's what's going on.
That's exactly what's going on. And the tragic part about it is, if we're being honest, is these people don't care. None of them care about the victims in this situation. They're only talking about, no one said anything about justice. If you heard the podcast, he said, I told him to get out of public life. That's not how criminal justice works.
Yeah.
If you commit a crime, you go to jail. You don't just get out of public life. You go to jail. So there's nobody calling for justice in a real sense. It's all about scoring political points. There will be an email from Marjorie Taylor, I promise you, within the next couple of days, raising money off of this very act, because this is what they do. It's a way to grift and also keep yourself relevant at any cost.
Mondo, you know we love a good prediction here. So yes, we're going to track that. We'll see how soon before Marge starts fundraising off of this, or further distancing herself from these guys who are her buddies. I'll talk about that long enough. Let's go to this next story. This is crazy. See if you might get caught up in something like this.
Have you heard about Kai, the hitchhiking hatchet hero?
This dude went from this heroic, beautiful person to wanted for murder.
An absolute bizarre scene here in West Fresno. A man plows his car into a PG&E worker, pinning him against his truck.
Two women are trying to help him. He runs up and he grabs one of them, man. So I ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Oh, it's the famous words of Kai, the hatchet-wielding hitchhiker. Smash, smash, smash. I remember we did this back in the day on the Young Turks. There's a documentary that's been produced by Netflix, and they detailed this whole crazy situation with them, which it is a crazy situation. It's probably a pretty good documentary. I will check it out, except there's one problem with that documentary. This man named Taylor Hazelwood somehow got caught up in it. His name is not Kai, but apparently they thought it was. So this man is suing Netflix in a Dallas County court, alleging that this true crime documentary on Netflix took a photo from his Instagram account and used it without his permission. Hazelwood alleges that the film depicts him in a sinister and defamatory light. and has harmed his reputation by using his photograph. He's seeking more than $1 million in damages. So the question then is, let's look at this image here as this picture was displayed on their quick motion that was going through on this documentary. This is our friend Hazelwood, Taylor Hazelwood, not Kai McGilvery. But they thought so, and they even said, they said things like, I believe it was on lines of, could a normal person be such a axe-wielding psychopath? Something along those lines, how it's unassuming. And apparently they were right, because it's not the same guy. He also said he has no idea why they used his photo for it, because he doesn't see the resemblance. So this picture of Hazelwood was of him holding a hatchet was from June of 2019, because he was at least holding a hatchet in the picture, so that's all it takes. And it was posted on his Instagram with the caption, "Hatchet" by Gary Paulson, a reference to his favorite childhood book, apparently. Without any reason other than pure recklessness, Netflix misappropriated the Hazelwood photograph and used it in 2 separate parts of the film. That's what his lawsuit is saying. But he had no connection to this entire case at all. So as we get your thoughts here, Mondale, let's look at this last graphic here, because maybe you guys can decide. Kai and Taylor? I don't know, bro. I don't know.
Yeah, in our community, we'd be like, yo, if that was 2 black men, like just because they got long hair and black, they look alike. Netflix dropped the ball on this one big time, and I think they may be in a lot of trouble. I think the slaying is he an angel or a stone cold killer? I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna pay this angel, because he was actually not even referring to with his hatchet. He was not even referring to anything other than I think a book from when he was a child. So I think this is absolutely disgusting, and the dangers of not checking and rechecking what you're doing, especially with people like this. This is a slip up, and I don't feel any remorse from a major corporation like Netflix, especially when they don't even pay their writers properly.
Oh, and they got all kinds of cash. I'm wondering how they landed on $1 million and not much more. Just saying. Apparently Taylor's a nice guy, because most folks might have been going for a bit of a higher number. Maybe that's all he could go for.
Yeah, so probably in Texas. Texas don't want you suing people, not businesses anyway, for money. So it's probably the max it could do.
Damn. Well, his friends texted him and said, "Bro, what have you been up to?" Damn. Next story, you guys. Everyone has sometimes these disruptions and frustrations on an airplane, but do you respond like this? Watch.
Stuck in a holding pattern for weather, and an SW, a passenger loses his mind over a baby.
That child has been crying for 3 minutes. Lower that, and you can't put your finger about things like that. Calm the child down, please. I had headphones on. I was sleeping. Why is the baby yelling? I'm not screaming. You want me to scream? You want me to scream? Don't scream. Please stop the baby. Please. Bro, please. That child was a black baby. What the is happening right now? Yo, I know you're not going there. You're not going there. I'm going there.
My man. So there was a screaming child on a Southwest flight, apparently going down to Florida. And this one particular passenger wanted nothing to do with this screaming baby. And he's trying to figure out, what the hell? Why aren't you guys doing something about this? He was not done. As a matter of fact, one of the best parts was the flight attendant trying to calm him down and also trying to tell him the reasons why they're allowing the baby to scream, but not allowing his grown ass to scream. Watch.
Let's be rational. We are in a tin can with a baby in a goddamn echo chamber, and you want to talk to me about being okay? Okay, because you're yelling. So is the baby. Okay, so you're a man. Did that motherfucker pay extra to yell? Okay. No.
Usually I save this kind of anger and ire and use of all these curse words for instances where, someone deserves it. I'm not sure what this baby did to deserve it, but still, I suppose when a baby's screaming and crying and you're stuck in this holding pattern, everyone's been in these situations and they just want nothing else to do with this. One more piece, though, before we let you in here, Mondale, because I can't wait to hear what you think here. So after he then refused to leave, because, we've already in the middle of 3 or 4 screaming matches. You got me kicked off the plane. I might as well take it to the end. Let's watch this.
Now we work it out. We had to go through all of that. It's worked out now.
heading to Orlando now. He's refusing to get off the plane. So now we're all getting deplaned.
Had to said anything, he wouldn't be sitting on this motherfucking flight with a kid crying for 45 minutes. It wasn't crying for 45 minutes. Bullshit.
No, that's it. You're not even worth anybody's time.
He tried to plead his case that he had a right to yell because there was 2 adults with a crying baby, and he shouldn't have been disturbed. Well, that's probably not how his wife imagined their Florida getaway going.
Mondell, 2 of my favorite parts. First of all, he mentioned the guy who's filming, MJ Grabowski. I got to shout out to my man because I regularly get frustrated by people filming crazy events and then either turn the camera the wrong way or continue to put it against a wall. He got every shot. And when he could get a shot of the man's face, he got the shot of his face. When he got him in the back in the airport arguing with security, he got a shot of the man's face. His entire outfit. He got a shot of his wife there with her hand on her head like, please, Robert, shut up. It was perfect. Matter of fact, my man had his comfortable pants on there. He had the like sweat like PJs, but then still a bit of a nice shirt, all to plan out his trip. Only thing that went wrong, Mondale, was that damn baby.
Listen,